I think that it's important to realize that when we're talking about eschatology, when we're looking at the end of the age, the last days, we, as a general we like to focus upon what the book of Revelation says. We'd like to focus upon what uh, Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, the Olivet Discourse, some of the parables of Jesus, 1 Thessalonians 1 and 2. We have various passages that we like to focus upon, and almost all of them are in the New Testament. Now, some people, they see the parallels between, and by some, really everybody who studies the end times sees parallels between the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation, and so the book of Daniel is a big one. But I think it's important to understand when we're talking about New Testament eschatology, we have to understand, first off, the end times that's declared from the Old Testament. You see, just for a case study, open up any book of the prophets in the Old Testament, any of them. Book of Micah, book of Malachi, Isaiah, Ezekiel. I mean, it doesn't matter which one you open up. Any of them that have prophetic declaration. So that would exclude something like the book of Jonah. But any of the books of the prophets that talk to us about the end times, you open it up and just as a case study, go to BibleHub.com and look up verse by verse through those books and just compare all of the other parallel passages that you see with those books. You're going to find that there is either a direct quote or a related verse that comes from Leviticus, Deuteronomy, the book of Genesis, or the stories of David, or the promises given to David. Over and over and over again, you see a reflection of the story of the Exodus, or the promise to Abraham, or something that was declared to one of the patriarchs, or something that was told to Israel that if you do this, you will be blessed. If you don't do this, you will be cursed. And here is what's going to happen. You're going to find it comes up over and over and over and over again. The prophets are not declaring something new. They are continually going back to the stories and back to the commandments, and they're seeing how God has related with his people from the very beginning. And they're saying, well, if God is acting like this, then he acts like this now. And that's important because we can understand, okay, if the Old Testament prophets are building upon the Old Testament prophets that came before them, then we can then understand the New Testament. Jesus comes. Before Jesus, of course, there was John the Baptist. They come and they start declaring this message, and they start to prophesy about the last days and the things that are coming and the things that are at hand. And the things that they talk about are direct quotes, references, allusions, etc., similar language, etc., to the Old Testament. And so you see times where Jesus is quoting out of Hosea, he's quoting out of Isaiah, he's quoting out of all of the Old Testament prophets. He's going back to the book of Genesis and he's saying, from the beginning it was like this. And he's again and again and again hammering the point home. He's building upon what was already declared, what God has already said to his people. That's what the prophets in the Old Testament did. It's what Jesus does in the New Testament. It's what the apostles do after Jesus in the New Testament. And so when we look at New Testament eschatology, if what we're building is a framework of our own conceived ideas, saying, well, Jesus said it's near and at hand, so it has to be about AD 70 with the destruction of Jerusalem. Or we say, well, we can believe that, the book of Revelation is about the Antichrist. The Antichrist hasn't yet come, and so we can see the book of Revelation and said he's going to be like this. There's going to be these 10 nations. There's going to be 7 heads. There's going to be these other things. And we can start to put these things together and put it into the mouth of John. We're suddenly no longer going back to the very things that they're quoting and referencing, and we're trying to build up an eschatology that is no longer biblical. And so it's important to understand when you're looking at the Bible, no matter what subject, everything builds upon itself. And it's important to trace from the beginning to the end. If it's only in one passage, if it's only in one place, it's not anywhere. I know that there are fuzzy things, but if it's really truly there, it's everywhere. Or it's not actually there.